I'm Jason, 32, and last year I finally achieved my dream of homeownership after saving every penny for nearly a decade. Standing in my empty living room, keys still warm in my hand, I felt a pride I'd never experienced before. This modest 3-bedroom house represented everything I'd worked for: independence, security, adulthood done right. Little did I know that less than 24 hours later, my sister Natalie would arrive with our parents and luggage in tow, ready to shatter my dream with 6 entitled words. This house is going to be ours. Before I continue this unbelievable story of family betrayal and eventual redemption, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear more true stories of family drama and the power of standing your ground. Growing up in our middle-class home in Michigan, the dynamic between my younger sister Natalie and me was established early. 4 years my junior, Natalie was the baby of the family in every sense. My parents, Robert and Margaret, weren't terrible people, but their parenting approach created a clear imbalance that would shape our entire lives. When I needed new basketball shoes in middle school, I mowed lawns all summer. When Natalie wanted a new phone, it appeared on her birthday with no questions asked. When I worked after school at a local hardware store to save for college, my parents praised my initiative, while simultaneously paying for Natalie's shopping sprees because girls need more things. These might sound like minor grievances, but they were symptoms of a much deeper issue. My high school graduation gift was a firm handshake and advice to apply for scholarships. Natalie's was a brand new car. I still remember my dad's reasoning. Jason's responsible, he'll figure it out. Natalie needs more support. This pattern continued through our young adult years. My struggles were seen as character-building opportunities, while Natalie's were family emergencies requiring immediate intervention. I worked my way through state college, balancing full-time classes with part-time construction jobs. Those years were tough but formative. I learned budgeting, time management, and the value of delayed gratification. Meanwhile, Natalie enrolled in an expensive private university with our parents covering every expense. She called home weekly for additional money, claiming unexpected costs that my parents never questioned. Despite the full ride, Natalie dropped out during her junior year. College isn't for everyone. My parents rationalized, never mentioning the tens of thousands they'd invested. I graduated with my engineering degree, modest student loans, and immediately began working for a construction management firm. Every promotion I earned came through late nights and consistent performance. I lived in a tiny apartment with second-hand furniture, putting away at least 30% of each paycheck toward my house fund. Natalie's post-college years were a series of false starts. She cycled through retail jobs, quitting whenever a manager disrespected her by asking her to work weekends or holidays. She dabbled in multi-level marketing schemes that my parents funded. She dated a string of guys who mysteriously all turned out to be controlling jerks after the initial excitement wore off. Then came Marcus, a smooth-talking bartender with big dreams and empty pockets. Within 6 months, Natalie was pregnant. Within a year after Tyler was born, Marcus was gone, leaving nothing but Instagram posts from his new life in Florida. My parents immediately converted their home office into a nursery, and Natalie moved back home with her newborn son. For 7 years, this arrangement continued. My parents essentially raised Tyler while working their full-time jobs, and Natalie contributed minimally to the household. When my parents gently suggested she find her own place as Tyler approached school age, she orchestrated tearful scenes about abandonment that inevitably ended with my parents apologizing to her. Meanwhile, I had worked my way up to project manager at my firm, overseeing multi-million-dollar commercial developments. My salary had increased substantially, but my lifestyle remained modest. I continued driving my 10-year-old sedan, making lunch at home, and living in the same one-bedroom apartment. By my early 30s, I had saved enough for a 20% down payment on a reasonable home. The house hunting process took 6 months. I wasn't looking for anything fancy, just a solid structure in a good school district with enough space to grow into. I toured countless properties, researched neighborhood crime statistics, checked flood zones, and calculated property tax trajectories. I passed on houses with swimming pools, granite countertops, and other luxuries that would stretch my budget or increase maintenance costs. Finally, I found it, a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom ranch home in a quiet subdivision. Built in the early 2000s, it had good bones, an open floor plan, and a manageable yard. The inspection revealed no major issues, and the appraisal came in right at my offer price. The closing process was smooth, and exactly 10 years after setting my home ownership goal, I received the keys to my very own property. That first night in my empty house was magical. I ordered pizza, sat on the floor of my living room, and just absorbed the reality that these walls were mine. I had a spare bedroom that could become a home office. I could paint any color I wanted. I could finally adopt the dog I'd been wanting for years. That night, I slept on an air mattress with a contentment I'd never known before. My furniture would be delivered the next day, and my new life would officially begin. I woke early on my second day as a homeowner, excited for my furniture delivery scheduled between 9 a.m. and noon. I made coffee using the single mug and small coffee maker I'd brought in my overnight bag, then started planning where exactly each piece would go. The house still echoed with emptiness, but in my mind, I could already see it furnished and lived in. Around 10:30 a.m., just as the delivery truck pulled into my driveway, my doorbell started ringing, not a normal ring, but an aggressive, continuous press that wouldn't stop. I opened the door to find not just the delivery workers, but an unexpected group, my sister Natalie, her son Tyler clutching a stuffed dinosaur, and behind them, my parents. More alarming than their surprise appearance was the collection of suitcases and boxes piled beside them. "Surprise!" Natalie exclaimed with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Before I could respond, she pushed past me into the empty living room, Tyler trailing behind her. "This house is going to be ours," she announced, spinning around to take in the space. "What are you talking about?" I asked, still standing at the door as the delivery workers awkwardly waited for direction. My mother stepped forward. "Jason, we need to talk. Can these men start bringing in the furniture while we discuss this as a family?" Confused and increasingly uneasy, I directed the delivery team to start with the living room pieces. As they worked, my family made themselves comfortable, Natalie already inspecting the kitchen cabinets while my parents sat on a bench by the entryway. "Natalie's been evicted from her apartment," my father explained once the delivery workers were occupied. "The landlord gave her just 3 days' notice. It's completely unfair." "That's terrible," I said, genuinely concerned but still confused. "But what does that have to do with my house?" "Your house," my mother repeated with emphasis that made my stomach tighten. "That's exactly the problem, Jason. You have this big house all to yourself while your sister and nephew have nowhere to go." Natalie returned from her self-guided tour. "The bedroom on the right will be perfect for Tyler and me. It gets good morning light." "Wait a minute," I said, my concern rapidly shifting to alarm. "I just bought this house yesterday. I'm not set up for house guests, let alone permanent ones." "We're not guests," Natalie stated flatly. "Family helps family. You have 3 bedrooms and you're just one person. That's selfish." My father stood up, using his authoritative stance that had always ended discussions when we were children. "Jason, your sister needs stability right now. Tyler is 7 years old and needs a consistent home environment. You're in a position to help, and that's what families do." I watched in disbelief as Natalie directed the delivery workers to place my new couch against a different wall than I'd planned. "This works better for the flow," she said, not to me but to my mother, who nodded in agreement. "Hold on," I said, trying to regain control of the situation and my rising anger. "I understand Natalie needs help, but this is my house that I worked for years to afford. I can offer temporary assistance, but nothing," Natalie interrupted. "Tyler and I need a permanent solution, not charity. This house has more than enough room for all of us." "All of us?" I repeated. "Well, obviously I can't leave Tyler alone when I go out." Natalie explained as if I were being deliberately obtuse. Mom and Dad will need to stay over sometimes too. I took a deep breath. Look, Tyler can stay here temporarily if needed. I can help you find a new apartment, maybe even help with the security deposit. I don't want another apartment. Natalie cut in, her voice rising. I'm tired of moving around. Tyler needs stability, a yard, a good school district, everything you have here. Which I worked for, I said, my own voice rising to match hers. For 10 years I saved and planned while I what? Natalie challenged. While I raised a child alone? Do you have any idea how hard that is? My mother stepped between us. This isn't productive. Jason, your sister needs help. She's family. You have space. I don't understand why you're being difficult about this. As we argued, Tyler had wandered off and was now in what would have been my home office, unpacking a box of his toys onto the floor. My parents had moved into the kitchen and were discussing which cabinets would work best for Natalie's dishes. I haven't agreed to any of this, I said, following them. You can't just move in without my permission. Permission? My father scoffed. She's your sister. Since when does family need permission to help family? Since it's my house, I replied firmly. My name on the mortgage, my down payment, my responsibility. Natalie joined us, rolling her eyes. Always so dramatic about money. Look, I'm not asking you to pay for anything extra. We'll split groceries or whatever. And rent? I asked pointedly. A moment of uncomfortable silence followed. Jason, my mother said gently. Natalie is a single mother trying to provide for her son. She can't afford rent right now, you know that. So I'm supposed to subsidize her housing indefinitely? I asked. While she lives in my house, rearranges my furniture, and makes decisions about my space. Our space, Natalie corrected. And it's just temporary until I get back on my feet. How temporary? I pressed. Another silence. We don't need to put a timeline on family helping family. My father interjected. The important thing is that Tyler has stability. I ran my hands through my hair in frustration. This wasn't a request for help. It was an invasion with an expectation of compliance. Looking around at my house, the house that represented a decade of sacrifice and discipline, I saw it being claimed and divided without my consent. The delivery workers finished bringing in my furniture, casting curious glances at the increasingly heated discussion. After they left, Natalie wasted no time continuing her takeover, directing my parents to bring in more boxes from their car. I think we should order pizza to celebrate our new home, she suggested, pulling out her phone. Tyler likes pepperoni, Dad wants his usual meat lovers, Mom's doing that gluten-free thing this month. What do you want, Jason? I want you to stop acting like this is a done deal, I replied, my patience evaporating. This is my house. I didn't invite you to live here. My mother gave me a disappointed look. Jason, where is your compassion? Your sister has nowhere else to go. She could stay with you and Dad, I pointed out. Like she has been for most of Tyler's life. We're getting older, my father explained with exaggerated patience. And our house is too small. This place is perfect, good schools for Tyler, enough bedrooms, a nice yard. All reasons why I bought it. I emphasized. For me. With my money. Natalie rolled her eyes again, a gesture I was finding increasingly infuriating. Always about money with you. Some things are more important than money, Jason. Easy to say when you're spending someone else's. I shot back. As we argued, Natalie continued unpacking her belongings, placing framed photos on my mantel and draping a throw blanket I'd never seen before over my new couch. Tyler had disappeared down the hallway toward the bedrooms. Let's be practical, my father suggested. Jason, you work long hours. You're barely home. Natalie can keep the house in order, cook meals. It's a win-win arrangement. A win-win would involve my consent, I countered. And some basic respect for boundaries. Like asking before assuming you can move into someone's house. A knock at the door interrupted us. I opened it to find an older couple standing on my porch. "Hello?" the woman said cheerfully. "We're the Hendersons from across the street. We saw the moving truck and wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood." Before I could respond, Natalie appeared beside me. "That's so sweet of you. I'm Natalie, this is my brother Jason. We just moved in with my son Tyler. We're so excited to join the neighborhood." The couple beamed. "How wonderful that you're living together as a family. We'll have to have you all over for dinner soon." After they left, I turned to Natalie in disbelief. "You just lied to my new neighbors." She shrugged. "I didn't lie. We are moving in. Mom and Dad agree it's for the best." "It doesn't matter what Mom and Dad think," I exclaimed, louder than I intended. "This is my house. Why are you being so selfish?" my mother demanded. "We raised you better than this, Jason." A terrible suspicion formed in my mind. "Natalie, why were you evicted? Was it for not paying rent?" Her defensive expression told me everything. "The landlord was a jerk. He kept raising the rent." "Did Mom and Dad give you money for rent?" I pressed. "My parents suddenly found the ceiling very interesting." "You did, didn't you?" I continued. "You gave her money for rent, she spent it on something else, and now instead of holding her accountable, you're trying to force me to house her indefinitely." "It wasn't like that," my mother protested weakly. "Then what was it like?" I demanded. No one answered directly. Instead, my father changed tactics. "Jason, if you refuse to help your sister, you're turning your back on this family. Is that really what you want?" The emotional blackmail was so transparent it almost made me laugh, except there was nothing funny about this situation. While we'd been arguing, Natalie had continued methodically claiming space, hanging a large framed poster on my living room wall, hammering a nail into my freshly painted wall without asking. "Natalie, stop putting holes in my walls," I shouted. "Don't yell at her," my mother snapped. "She's just trying to make this place livable." "It was perfectly livable before you all showed up uninvited," I retorted. Natalie adjusted the frame, ignoring me. "This house was too plain anyway. It needs a woman's touch." That's when something in me snapped. "Enough. This has gone too far. I need you all to leave. Now." "We're not going anywhere," Natalie stated firmly. "Tyler needs stability. Tyler needs a mother who can provide for him responsibly," I countered. "Not one who teaches him it's okay to take what isn't his." "How dare you question my parenting?" Natalie gasped. My father stepped between us. "Jason, be reasonable. Where is your sister supposed to go?" "That's not my problem," I said, surprising myself with my resolve. "She's an adult. She made choices that led to this situation. I'm not responsible for fixing her life." "You owe us this house," Natalie suddenly declared, her voice cold. I stared at her. "What did you just say?" "You heard me," she continued. "All those years Mom and Dad helped me, they could have been saving for their retirement. Now they're behind financially because of me, and you're sitting here with a big house all to yourself. You owe the family this space." It was such a twisted, entitled logic that I couldn't even form a response. In that moment, I realized no amount of reasonable discussion would resolve this. They had already decided what was going to happen. My feelings, boundaries, and property rights were irrelevant. "I'm going to ask one more time," I said quietly. "Please leave my house now." "Or what?" Natalie challenged. "Or I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing." The room went silent. "You wouldn't dare," my mother whispered, shock evident in her voice. "Try me," I replied, pulling out my phone. Natalie's face contorted with rage. "You would call the police on your own family? What kind of monster are you?" My father stepped forward, his expression a mix of disbelief and anger. "Jason, put the phone down. We're going to discuss this like adults." "We tried that," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. You've all made it clear that my boundaries don't matter. This is my home, purchased with my money, and I'm not asking any more. I'm telling you to leave. After everything we've done for you? My mother cried, tears welling in her eyes. This is how you repay us. What exactly have you done for me? I asked quietly. I worked my way through college. I saved for 10 years for this down payment. I've built my career through hard work. What part of that do I owe to you? We raised you, my father thundered. Yes, you did, I acknowledged. And then expected me to figure out adulthood on my own, which I did. Meanwhile, you've enabled Natalie's dependency for years, and now you're trying to make it my problem. Natalie's voice rose to a shriek. You've always been jealous of me. You've always resented that Mom and Dad love me more. From down the hallway came the sound of Tyler crying, frightened by the escalating argument. For a moment I felt a pang of guilt. This wasn't his fault. But then I remembered, I wasn't the one who brought a child into this toxic situation. Natalie had. This isn't about jealousy, I said firmly. This is about respect and boundaries, concepts you clearly don't understand. Boundaries? My father scoffed. Family doesn't have boundaries, Jason. Family is there for each other, no matter what. That's not family, I replied. That's codependency. And I won't participate in it anymore. Natalie stormed toward me, finger pointed at my face. You selfish, heartless bastard. You would rather see your nephew homeless than share your precious house? Tyler will not be homeless, I said. He has grandparents who have housed him before and can do so again. Or you could act like a responsible parent and find a sustainable living situation instead of trying to commandeer mine. I am a responsible parent, Natalie screamed, so loudly that I took a step back. You have no idea what it's like to raise a child alone. You live your perfect little bachelor life while I struggle every day. Your struggles are not my responsibility, I stated firmly. And they don't give you the right to take what isn't yours. That's when Natalie uttered the words that crystallized everything. You owe us this house, Jason. After everything I've been through, you owe me this. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity what would happen if I gave in. This wouldn't be temporary. There would always be another reason why Natalie needed to stay, why I needed to compromise, why my wants and needs came second to hers. The pattern established in childhood would continue indefinitely, my success penalized, her failures rewarded. I'm calling the police, I said, dialing 911. You can't be serious, my mother gasped. Hello, I need assistance. I spoke into the phone. I have people refusing to leave my property after being asked multiple times. What followed was chaos. Natalie screamed obscenities while my father tried to grab the phone from my hand. My mother rushed to comfort Tyler, who was now standing in the hallway sobbing. I stepped outside onto the porch to complete the call, giving the dispatcher my address and a brief explanation of the situation. When I went back inside, Natalie was in full meltdown mode, picking up a decorative vase I'd bought the previous week and hurling it against the wall, where it shattered. See what you made me do, she screamed. This is your fault. My parents were no longer trying to mediate. They had fully joined Natalie's side. My father called me every name he could think of while my mother alternated between comforting Tyler and condemning my cruelty. The 15 minutes until the police arrived felt like hours. When they finally knocked on the door, the relief I felt was overwhelming. 2 officers entered, a middle-aged man and a younger woman. They surveyed the scene. Broken glass on the floor, furniture in disarray, my red-faced family, and Tyler crying in the corner. What's going on here? The male officer asked. Everyone started talking at once. The female officer held up her hand. One at a time. Sir, since you made the call, please explain the situation. Calmly, I explained that I had purchased the house the day before, that my sister and parents had arrived uninvited with luggage, and that they were refusing to leave despite multiple requests. That's not true, Natalie interjected. He invited us to live with him because I'm a single mother who needs help. Is your name on the lease or mortgage? The female officer asked her. No, but do you have any legal right to be in this residence? He's my brother. Family has rights too. The male officer turned to my parents. Are either of you on the deed to this property? My father's authoritative demeanor faltered. No, but we're his parents. We're trying to resolve a family matter. It sounds like your son has made it clear he wants you to leave his property, the officer stated. At this point, you're trespassing. My mother began to cry. You don't understand. My daughter and grandson have nowhere to go. The female officer's expression softened slightly. Ma'am, I understand this is emotionally difficult, but legally, your son has the right to decide who stays in his home. So you're just going to throw a 7-year-old boy out on the street? Natalie demanded, pulling Tyler close to her side for maximum effect. No one's throwing anyone on the street, the male officer replied evenly. But you need to respect the homeowner's wishes. You need to gather your belongings and leave peacefully, or we'll have to escalate this situation. For a moment, I thought Natalie might physically attack the officers. Instead, she burst into dramatic tears. I can't believe this is happening. My own brother choosing his house over his family. What kind of person does that? The officers exchanged a glance that suggested they'd seen this kind of family drama before. The female officer turned to me. Sir, are you willing to give them some time to gather their things? Yes, I replied. They can pack what they've brought in and leave within the hour. Under the officer's supervision, my family grudgingly gathered their belongings. Natalie made a show of comforting Tyler, loudly explaining that Uncle Jason doesn't want us in his life anymore. My parents avoided eye contact with me entirely, as if I were a stranger. As they loaded their car, my father finally spoke directly to me. If you do this, don't expect to be welcome in our home ever again. I understand, I replied, feeling a strange calm despite the gravity of his words. This isn't over. Natalie hissed as she passed me. You'll regret this. The officers remained until my family drove away, then offered some words of advice about changing locks and documenting any further incidents. After they left, I stood in my living room, now silent except for the ticking of a clock, and surveyed the damage. A broken vase, holes in my walls, furniture in disarray, and a family relationship potentially destroyed forever. Yet despite the wreckage, both physical and emotional, I felt something unexpected, relief. For the first time in my life, I had established a boundary with my family and held firm, despite the tremendous pressure to cave. The house was mine again, but more importantly, so was my life. The quiet that settled over my house after everyone left was both peaceful and deafening. I spent that evening cleaning up the mess, patching the wall where Natalie had hammered the nail, sweeping up the shattered vase, and returning furniture to its intended positions. Every action felt like reclaiming my space, but each also carried the weight of what had just happened. I slept poorly that night, my mind replaying the confrontation on endless loop. Had I overreacted? Could I have handled it differently? The questions plagued me, but by morning, I still believed I'd made the right decision, difficult, but right. The fallout began immediately. My phone exploded with texts and calls, first from my parents and Natalie, then from extended family members. The narrative had already been established. I had callously thrown my homeless sister and innocent nephew onto the street because I was selfish and materialistic. My Aunt Barbara called to tell me she was disappointed in the man I'd become. My cousin Michael texted that I should rethink my priorities before it's too late. Not one person asked for my side of the story. I changed the locks that first weekend, installing a deadbolt and a smart doorbell camera system that would alert me to any visitors. The expense hadn't been in my budget, but neither had defending my home from my own family. The following Monday at work, I struggled to focus on the commercial development project I was managing. Calculations blurred before my eyes as my mind kept drifting back to Tyler's tearful face. My coworker and friend Brian noticed my distraction during our team meeting. "You okay, man?" he asked afterward. "You seem off today." I hesitated, then gave him an abbreviated version of what had happened. I expected judgment, but instead found understanding. "My brother tried something similar when I bought my condo," Brian confided. "Not as extreme, but same entitlement mentality. It's tough when family doesn't respect boundaries." His validation helped more than I could express. Maybe I wasn't the villain in this story after all. 2 weeks after the incident, I received a formal complaint from my homeowners association about unauthorized construction in my backyard. Since I hadn't done any work on the property yet, I knew immediately who was behind it. The HOA representative mentioned they'd received an anonymous tip. I had to take time off work to meet with the board and prove no violations had occurred. Next came the social media campaign. Natalie posted a carefully edited version of events on Facebook, portraying herself as a struggling single mother whose heartless brother had left her and her son homeless out of pure selfishness. She included a photo of Tyler looking sad in what appeared to be a motel room, with a caption about making the best of difficult circumstances. The post was shared among our extended family and mutual friends, generating dozens of sympathetic comments and private messages to me expressing collective disappointment. Nobody seemed to question why, if she was truly homeless, our parents hadn't taken her in, the same parents who had housed her for most of Tyler's life already. I discovered through a mutual friend that my parents had indeed given Natalie money for a 2-bedroom apartment, this time paying the landlord directly rather than trusting her with the funds. So much for being homeless. The motel photo had been taken during a weekend trip months earlier and repurposed for maximum sympathy. The hardest part came during the holidays. For Thanksgiving, I received no invitation to the family gathering, the first one I'd missed in my entire life. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was better off without the drama, but spent the day alone with a frozen turkey dinner and a football game I couldn't focus on. For Christmas, my mother sent a card with a gift card inside, no personal message, just her signature. The subtext was clear: our relationship had been reduced to obligation. During this period of estrangement, I threw myself into work and home improvements. I painted rooms, installed new fixtures, and built the raised garden beds I'd always wanted. I adopted a dog, a gentle 3-year-old retriever mix named Cooper from the local shelter. His unconditional affection helped fill the void left by my family's absence. I also found unexpected purpose through a colleague's suggestion to volunteer with a youth mentorship program. Once a week, I worked with teenagers from disadvantaged backgrounds, teaching them basic construction skills and financial literacy. Many came from chaotic home situations, and I found myself sharing principles of boundary setting and self-reliance that I wished I'd understood earlier in life. "You can love someone without enabling them," I told Miguel, a bright 16-year-old whose mother expected him to support his adult brother's drug habit. "Sometimes the most caring thing you can do is say no." Was I trying to convince him, or myself? Probably both. Nearly 6 months after the confrontation, I received a text from my father, the first direct communication since that day. It wasn't an apology, but a terse message informing me that my grandmother had been hospitalized and would want you to know. I visited her that evening, carefully timing my arrival to avoid running into other family members. Grandma Ruth, at 84, was still sharp as ever. As I sat beside her hospital bed, she fixed me with her no-nonsense gaze. "They're saying you abandoned your sister," she stated bluntly. "That's not what happened," I replied, then gave her the unvarnished truth. She listened without interruption, then nodded slowly. "Sounds like Natalie's still pulling the same stunts she did as a child. Your parents never could say no to those big eyes." Her understanding was like rainfall in a drought. "So you don't think I'm a monster?" Grandma Ruth patted my hand. "Standing up for yourself doesn't make you a monster, Jason. It makes you an adult. More of a grown-up than your sister, certainly." I drove home from the hospital feeling lighter than I had in months. One person in my family saw the situation clearly, and somehow that was enough to ease the burden of being cast as the villain. As the 1-year anniversary of my home purchase approached, I realized that despite the family turmoil, I had created a life I was proud of. My house had become a true home, reflecting my personality and values. My career was advancing, with a promotion to senior project manager on the horizon. Cooper had become my loyal companion, greeting me each evening with boundless enthusiasm. The mentorship program had expanded, and I was now leading workshops on financial planning for first-time homebuyers. I had survived the family earthquake and built something solid from the rubble. I wasn't without regrets. I missed Tyler and worried about the example being set for him, but I no longer questioned whether I'd made the right decision in protecting my boundaries. Then, on a rainy Tuesday evening almost exactly 1 year after the confrontation, my doorbell rang. Cooper barked his alert as I checked the doorbell camera on my phone. Natalie stood on my porch. Alone. I stared at my phone screen, watching as Natalie shifted nervously on my porch. She was alone, no Tyler, no parents, no reinforcements for another home invasion attempt. She looked different somehow, her typically immaculate appearance more subdued, her posture less confident. My thumb hovered over the intercom button. Part of me wanted to ignore her completely. Another part wanted to tell her exactly where she could go. But curiosity won out. "What do you want, Natalie?" I asked through the doorbell speaker. She jumped slightly at my voice. "Can we talk? Please? Just for a few minutes." "About what?" "I'd rather not do this through a doorbell camera," she replied, surprising me with her restraint. The old Natalie would have launched into a dramatic monologue regardless of the circumstances. Against my better judgment, I opened the door but remained in the doorway, Cooper sitting protectively at my side. Natalie's eyes darted to the dog. "You got a dog?" she observed. "Yes." "Cooper." "He's nice," she said awkwardly, then fell silent. I waited, offering no assistance to whatever conversation she was attempting to initiate. "You look good," she finally said. "The house, too. It looks really nice." "Thank you," I replied evenly. "Again, what do you want, Natalie?" She took a deep breath. "I came to apologize." Of all the things she might have said, this was perhaps the last I expected. Natalie didn't apologize, she justified, deflected, or counterattacked, but she never admitted fault. "I was wrong," she continued, her voice quiet but steady. "What I did last year, what we all did, was wrong. I had no right to try to take over your house or make demands of you. I'm sorry." I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or hidden agenda. "Why now?" "It's been a year." "Because it took me that long to really understand what I did," she replied. "And honestly, I wasn't sure you'd even open the door." "I almost didn't," I admitted. She nodded. "I wouldn't have blamed you." After a pause, she asked, "Could we maybe talk somewhere?" "Not in your house," she added quickly. "Just a coffee shop or something neutral." My instinct was to refuse, to protect myself from whatever new drama she might be orchestrating. But something in her demeanor seemed genuinely different. "There's a coffee place about 2 blocks from here," I suggested cautiously. "I can meet you there in 20 minutes. Relief washed over her face. "Thank you, Jason." 20 minutes later, I entered the small corner cafe, scanning for Natalie. She'd chosen a table by the window, away from other customers, with 2 cups already waiting. I approached warily and sat across from her. "I got you black coffee," she said. "You still take it black, right?" "Yes," I replied, surprised she'd remembered. She wrapped her hands around her own cup, seemingly gathering her thoughts. "I don't know where to start." "The beginning usually works," I suggested, either hostile nor welcoming. Natalie nodded. "The beginning. Okay." She took a sip of her coffee. "After you had us removed from your house, I was furious. I spent months being angry, telling anyone who would listen what a terrible person you were. I truly believed I was the victim. And now?" I prompted when she paused. "Now I understand I was the villain in that story," she said quietly. "It took hitting rock bottom to see it." "What happened?" Mom and Dad got me the apartment, like you probably know. They paid for 6 months up front. I was so sure I'd find a job and get on my feet by then, but you didn't. I finished for her. No. I kept quitting jobs because they weren't fulfilling or the manager was unfair, the same old patterns. When the 6 months ended, Mom and Dad said they couldn't keep supporting me. We had a huge fight. I accused them of abandoning me, just like I'd accused you. She paused, staring into her coffee. Then my friend Melissa let Tyler and me crash on her couch temporarily. 2 weeks turned into 2 months. She finally asked us to leave after I'd borrowed her car without permission and got a parking ticket I couldn't pay. That must have been difficult, I said neutrally. It was the wake-up call I needed, Natalie continued. I had nowhere to go. Mom and Dad said I could send Tyler to stay with them, but they wouldn't enable my behavior anymore. For the first time in my life, my safety net was gone. What did you do? I swallowed my pride and went to a women's resource center. They helped me find temporary housing and connected me with a therapist through a sliding scale program. That's when the real work began. Therapy? I asked, genuinely surprised. Natalie nodded. Twice a week for the past 8 months. Turns out I have some pretty deep issues around entitlement and responsibility. My therapist helped me see how I've been manipulating people my whole life, especially our parents. I sipped my coffee, processing this information. That couldn't have been easy to hear. It wasn't. I resisted hard at first. But eventually, I couldn't ignore the patterns anymore. She looked up at me directly. You were right, Jason. About all of it. I've been letting other people clean up my messes for so long that I never learned to stand on my own. The sincerity in her voice was something I'd never heard before. Still, years of manipulation made me cautious. I appreciate the apology, Natalie. But what exactly do you want from me now? Nothing, she replied immediately. That's the point. I'm not here to ask for money or a place to stay or anything else. I just needed to apologize and take responsibility for what I did to you. My therapist calls it making amends, but it's more than that to me. It's about finally growing up. Where are you living now? I asked. I have a 1-bedroom apartment near the community college. It's small but decent. Tyler has the bedroom, and I sleep on a pull-out couch in the living room. I'm working as an administrative assistant at an insurance office. Nothing glamorous, but steady pay and benefits. And Tyler? A genuine smile crossed her face. He's doing well. The stability has been good for him. He's in 2nd grade now, reading above grade level. He asks about you sometimes. That hit me harder than I expected. He does. Yes. He doesn't understand everything that happened, but he remembers you. He has that toy construction set you gave him for Christmas 2 years ago. He says he's going to be a builder like Uncle Jason. I felt a lump forming in my throat but pushed past it. And Mom and Dad? Natalie's expression turned complicated. That's a work in progress. They're trying to understand their role in enabling me. It's hard for them to accept that their help was actually hurting me in the long run. We're all learning new ways to interact. They still think I overreacted. I guessed. They did, she acknowledged. But I've been trying to help them see your side. Actually, that's another reason I wanted to talk to you. Mom and Dad don't know I'm here. This isn't some family-orchestrated reconciliation attempt. This is just me, taking responsibility. We talked for nearly 2 hours, covering ground we'd never explored before. Her feelings of inadequacy compared to my achievements, my resentment over the unequal treatment we'd received, the complicated dynamics that had shaped both our lives. For the first time, we spoke as adults rather than as roles in a family drama. As we prepared to leave, Natalie hesitated. I'm not asking for us to be best friends overnight. I know trust has to be rebuilt. But I'm hoping maybe, someday, we could try to have some kind of relationship again. For Tyler's sake, if nothing else. I'd like to see Tyler, I admitted. But we need clear boundaries. No assumptions, no unspoken expectations. Absolutely. She agreed quickly. Whatever boundaries you need, I'll respect them. That's part of what I'm learning. Healthy relationships require healthy boundaries. As we walked out of the coffee shop, Natalie turned to me one last time. Thank you for listening, Jason. I wouldn't have blamed you if you'd slammed the door in my face. I almost did, I said honestly. But I'm glad I didn't. For the first time in over a year, we parted without anger or drama, just two adults acknowledging a difficult past and the possibility of a different future. As I walked home, I felt something I hadn't expected: hope. The next 6 months were a careful dance of rebuilding trust, one small step at a time. 2 weeks after our coffee shop conversation, Natalie texted asking if I'd be willing to meet Tyler at a public park. I agreed, bringing Cooper along as both companion and buffer. Tyler's face lit up when he saw me. "Uncle Jason! You got a dog!" He immediately dropped to his knees to greet Cooper, who responded with enthusiastic licks. "This is Cooper," I told him. "He likes to play fetch if you're interested." For an hour, we played with Cooper, Tyler's laughter filling the air as he threw the ball with increasing confidence. Natalie sat on a nearby bench, present but giving us space. When it was time to leave, Tyler asked, "Can we do this again?" I glanced at Natalie, who nodded slightly. "Sure, buddy. I'd like that." These park meetings became a monthly ritual. Sometimes we'd play basketball or fly a kite. Other times we just walk Cooper and talk about Tyler's school projects or the books he was reading. Natalie always maintained a respectful distance, never pushing for more than I was comfortable giving. 3 months in, I invited them to my house for the first time, not to stay, but for a Saturday afternoon barbecue. Natalie brought a homemade potato salad and behaved like a polite guest, asking permission before using my bathroom and complimenting the improvements I'd made without any hint of entitlement. "You've done amazing things with this place," she observed as I showed them the backyard garden I'd built. "It really feels like you." Tyler was fascinated by my workshop in the garage. "Can you teach me how to build stuff, Uncle Jason?" And so our next few visits centered around simple woodworking projects: a birdhouse, a small bookshelf for his room, a pencil holder for Natalie's desk at work. I found myself looking forward to these times, watching Tyler's concentration as he carefully measured twice before cutting, his pride in creating something with his own hands. Rebuilding a relationship with our parents proved more challenging. They had reluctantly begun to acknowledge their role in enabling Natalie's behavior, but old patterns run deep. The first time I visited their home, about 4 months after reconnecting with Natalie, the tension was palpable. "We've missed you," my mother said stiffly as I sat in their living room, the same space where family gatherings had once felt natural. "I've missed you too," I replied, surprised to find it was true despite everything. My father cleared his throat. "Natalie tells us you've been spending time with Tyler. Teaching him woodworking." "Yes. He's got a good eye for detail." An uncomfortable silence followed, filled with unspoken recriminations and defenses. Finally, my mother asked, "Would you like to stay for dinner?" It wasn't an apology, or even an acknowledgement of what had happened, but it was an opening. "I'd like that," I said. Progress with them came in small moments. My father asking about my latest project at work without immediately comparing it to Natalie's struggles. My mother mentioning she'd driven by my house and noticed the new landscaping, adding, "It looks nice," without suggestion or criticism. The real breakthrough came during a family dinner at my parents' house, when Natalie and I were both present. My father made a comment about helping out with Tyler's summer camp fees, automatically reaching for his wallet. "Actually, Dad," Natalie interjected, "I've got it covered. I've been putting money aside each month for Tyler's activities." The surprise on our parents' faces was almost comical. When my father persisted, Natalie held firm. "I appreciate the offer, but I need to handle this myself." After dinner, as we helped clean up, my mother whispered to me, "You were right about some things, Jason. We didn't do Natalie any favors by always rescuing her." It wasn't a full apology, but it was an acknowledgement, a start. By the time Christmas approached, our family dynamic had shifted into something new, not perfect, but healthier. For the first time, I offered to host the holiday gathering at my house. Natalie volunteered to cook the turkey, my mother brought her traditional sides, and my father arrived with a peace offering, a handcrafted wooden sign reading, "Jason's home," for my front porch. "I made it in the workshop at the senior center," he explained gruffly. "Thought you might like it." The gesture spoke volumes coming from a man who had never been comfortable with emotional conversations. "Thanks, Dad. It's perfect." As we sat around my dining table, Tyler proudly using the serving dishes he'd helped stain and finish, I reflected on the journey of the past year and a half. From the violation of my boundaries to the police intervention, from painful estrangement to cautious reconciliation, we had traversed difficult terrain to arrive at this new place. I watched as Natalie helped Tyler cut his turkey, no longer playing the role of helpless victim but of capable mother. I observed my parents deferring to my house rules without comment or criticism. These changes hadn't come easily or without setbacks, but they were real. After dinner, as Tyler and Cooper played in the backyard under my father's supervision, Natalie joined me in the kitchen where I was loading the dishwasher. "Thank you for giving us another chance," she said quietly. "I know I didn't deserve it." "Maybe it's not about deserving," I replied. "Maybe it's about growing." She smiled. "My therapist would approve of that perspective." "How are things going with the promotion at work?" I asked. "Good. The office manager is retiring next year, and they're training me to take over. It's a lot of responsibility, but I'm ready for it." She hesitated, then added, "I've been looking into online classes to finish my degree, too. One course at a time, nothing dramatic." "That's great, Natalie. Really. I'm learning that slow and steady progress is better than grand gestures that fizzle out." She reflected. "Kind of like rebuilding relationships." Later that evening, as everyone prepared to leave, Tyler gave me a tight hug. "Best Christmas ever, Uncle Jason." Over his head, I met my sister's gaze, seeing in her eyes the same recognition that had been growing in me. Setting boundaries wasn't selfish. It was necessary for genuine relationships to flourish. Enabling wasn't love, it was fear disguised as care. And family, real family, could survive truth-telling and still find their way back to each other. As I stood on my porch waving goodbye, Cooper leaning against my leg, I felt profound gratitude for the hard-won wisdom of the past year. The house behind me was still mine, my achievement, my sanctuary, my responsibility. But now it was also occasionally a gathering place for a family learning healthier ways to love each other. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give those we care about is the courage to say no when necessary and yes when right. Sometimes the strongest foundations are built after the hardest storms. And sometimes, the most important boundaries are the ones that allow us to eventually welcome others across the threshold on terms of mutual respect. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? Did it lead to positive change or ongoing conflict? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Your support helps me continue sharing these real-life journeys of family challenges and personal growth. Thank you for listening, and remember, protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's essential.